So showcasing Fulcrum, obviously playing Cyclone because that's what I do. But I've been testing Fulcrum and it's been really fun to play. So let's just do it. This is 60% simulacrums. I don't have any simulacrum nodes on the tree. And it's not like super hard mods or anything. So the AoE is pretty good. I'm not gonna stay and loot stuff. So Fulcrum scales insanely well with Headhunter. Obviously, a lot of builds do that, but I feel like Fulcrum is crazy good for this because we are getting so much free from the Fulcrum that it's just like when we get certain mods on the Headhunter, it's crazy clear. And you can see the movement speed is really good. I'm not using Arena Challenger because I couldn't fit it in on the tree. Otherwise, I probably would try to use it. So maybe that is an option to use Arena Challenger. I just feel like it feels a little bit overkill to have it. We would scale our movement speed, but probably like, I don't know, 20-30% more movement speed if we had Arena Challenger. So it's definitely an option to have it. Yikes. I think that was pretty much it. Might go and clear up the map afterwards. Oh my god, go into fucking portal. Alright, so we are using Fulcrum. Number one thing on the Fulcrum is to get 100% converted. So that means that if you calculate in the physical fire, cold, lightning, that has to be to 100. And it's usually pretty easy to do. They can be really difficult to roll. I think I spent maybe like 5 divines rolling this. You can be unlucky, you can be lucky. Ultimately, you want to reach 100. If you can get a perfect Fulcrum, I mean that's really good. But they are insanely expensive, even for leagues and stuff. Now, there's a couple of ways to play Fulcrum. I'm not going to go over the entire build fully because it's just a normal Cycloner. We want to use Winter Weave, obviously. The number one item, however, is the boots. The boots are the worst aspect of the entire build because they enable the build. There's no other way to get unaffected by Ignite. And then I have another pair of boots that are pretty good that only have unaffected by Ignite, so no Tailwind. But what do you want, since the problem with the fucking boots, excuse my language, but these boots, I've tried to craft probably like 20 pair of boots, and it's a nightmare to craft these. The reason for that is that unaffected by Ignite is a prefix, and it just screws up everything. So you don't want to roll life. You want to have 2 open prefixes, preferably, or if you can be really lucky and you get 30% movement speed or 35% movement speed. But if you have two open prefixes, you can multi-craft if you have an open suffix, which is also important. And that's where the problem is, because you want to have that open prefix so you can craft unavoided being frozen. Because that just alleviates so much pressure from the build, and you don't have to use like Arctic armor or some stupid shit like that. So that's the entire build is based on these type of boots. You could get just unaffected by ignite, open prefix, and then craft on avoid being frozen, right? But we want to go fast, and Tailwind is so good for this build. And we can't get elusive, but Tailwind is really, really good. So what you want to do if you want to have an high-end pair of boots is that you have a Tailwind, and preferably, if you really want to go all out, you get Tailwind effect, and then you slam that. I did that a couple of times. I got my RNG was so terrible that I just gave up trying to get a good Tailwind. So I just bought or crafted Tailwind myself, and then basically just slammed and hope. You have to pray when you craft these type of boots. It's absolutely the worst experience I've ever had crafting, and that's really the main obstacle in the entire build, is to get these boots. Another item that's really, really good is obviously Headhunter, and the reason for that is because we get so much conversion. Headhunter gives us even more conversions, so ultimately when we say we're doing like a 5-way Legion, which is really good with this build, by the way. It's probably the best 5-way Legion build I've ever had solo. The conversions go through the roof, and you're gonna have insane amount of elemental damage, and you're gonna clear entire screens. Now, the skill games are interesting because there is a couple of ways to do it. I went with Shockwave. So you can go with Shockwave or you go with Trinity. Trinity is obviously a lot better against bosses, and overall gives you a lot of elemental damage. I just feel like we already have so much elemental damage that I would rather have extra clear speed. So that's the reason I went with Shockwave instead of Trinity. Now, if you want to do bosses, because you can do bosses with this build, it's not entirely impossible. But just remember that Shockwave adds an immense layer of clear to the build. The build is actually based on shit. I forgot his name now, but it was a Chainbreaker build way back. This is probably like 2 years ago. That I actually played. I played a Chainbreaker build before. That's really the main reason you want to play it also, because Cyclone feels really terrible without Kaoms Spirit. But Chainbreaker was the old meta. Now with Kaoms Spirit, we are essentially the same build with some differences. I would say we probably do more damage with this build because we don't have to use some of the cluster jewels that you had to use before. So it's essentially the same build. Now there's also some new masteries. So the masteries, the number 1 mastery that had been added, I think it was added actually this patch, but hits have 25% chance to treat enemy resistance as inverted. That is really good. The other one is really good. It's 3% for hits to deal 300% of physical damage, extra element of a random element. That is also insanely good. So you can pick and choose what you want to get. Right now I'm having inverted. It's better against bosses. So that's the trade-off probably. I would say when you do like normal mapping, you don't have to think about that. You can get 300%. Obviously you want to be immune. To be immune to ignite, we get revert from the winter weave, and we are also avoidance being frozen. the way you avoid shock is use 60%, reduce shock here, and then 31% reduce shock here. I think I can divine this. I haven't done that. Oh, it's not. You only 35%, but that's how you do it. There are abyssuals that have, I think, up to 50% or 60% reduced effect on shock on you. So that's really good. But just remember that you do not want to be ailment immune. That is very important. I actually fucked that up the first time I played it because I had purity of elements on. I didn't understand why it didn't work, and then I was like, oh, I'm retarded. Other notable is Blast Freeze is really, really good with this build. It chills everything. The ascendancies of these. Other than that, it's pretty much just Game Arena Cappuccino. You don't really have to think that much. And it works as a normal Cycloner. You put on Kaoms Spirit, and then you play. Just remember that the boots are a massive hurdle in the build, like massive hurdle. So just remember that. But yeah, awesome build and a lot of fun to play.